How'd you go with your break?
Stunning.
Stunning break?
Stunning break.
Wonderful. I'm just going to go through a quick reminder of what we've been through. But I was actually hoping to just pick your brain and see if you can remember some of the key things that we spoke about in that first session. What were those sort of three main topics that we sort of spoke through?
So basically what I took out of it is how to prioritise your goals using the ABCDE method and what those each stand for. How to set a correct goal, not correct, but a good goal using the SMART goal method, and sort of just understanding what goals are right for, right's not the right word, what goals are like useful as opposed to sort of little mundane goals that aren't really helping your cause, they're sort of just distractions.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So just to sort of be a bit more specific, but you've hit the nail on the head really. We sort of looked at identifying and prioritising those personal work goals as you already identified. How to look at the existing skills. So we did a very, very quick skill inventory. If we have more time this session, we might flesh that out a little bit. And we looked at that sort of possible work progression opportunity. For the agenda for session 2, we're looking at preparing, so how to get there. So we're going to assess our current skills and our knowledge gap using that skill inventory and the position description that you found. We're going to do a little bit of research to figure out ways to help professionally develop and achieve some goals. And essentially what that will lead to is writing a development plan. With 30 minutes, there's no chance we're going to get to writing a full development plan, but hopefully you'll have the kind of formula in mind as to what you need to do when you go away to create your own development plan. And we might be able to sort of kick it off with some ideas and make sure those are really relevant to you, which was what we've been doing so far. Great. So another quick check-in. We had 3 steps at the start when we were thinking about these personal goals. Do you happen to remember what those steps might have been?
As in, like if that was SMART goals and ABCD goals?
Yeah, do you remember the sort of key words that we were looking at, sort of separating that into? But you're right, SMART goals, prioritization.
Wouldn't be able to give you the key words.
That's fine. So identify what the goals are, clarify what the goals are, and then prioritize the goals. So those are the 3 steps when we're just thinking about really articulating exactly what it is that we're trying to achieve. Yeah? Awesome. So creating a development plan. This is essentially what we're going to be doing. We're breaking down each step with the aim of creating a development plan, or at least knowing how to towards the end of this session. Step 1, completing a self-assessment to identify those skill gaps. We're going to grab the skill inventory that you've just done before, maybe might flesh it out a little bit if we feel like we need to. We're going to have a think about where we're sitting with all of those. We're going to have a look at the position description that you've found and where your skills sit, your existing skills sit in comparison to the skills that are required for that role that you're trying to get to. Maybe where there might be some skill gaps, or at least and also identifying some strengths that you can really sell yourself on. We're going to spend a little bit of time researching ways to develop those identified gaps. So that could be, a course. If you really need to learn how to, use Adobe Suite, as I mentioned before, what's the best way to go about developing that skill? And we're just going to have a bit of a brainstorm, and hopefully if there's time, a bit of a research there. And that will all lead to creating a development plan. So I've got another video that I'm going to show you, which is just, it's sort of another way of sort of talking through all these steps that I've been through. It just sort of clarifies it all and brings it all together. So I'll play that one for you.
This video is brought to you by TalentDev, an online platform dedicated to helping professionals map out their careers. A successful career doesn't happen by chance. It takes careful and strategic planning, a roadmap, if you will, to your future. Whether you're taking your very first steps into the world of work, or you're trying to move into a C-suite role, developing a solid career plan will help you take control and prepare for your next steps so you can achieve your professional goals, whatever they are. So how do you build an effective career plan? Keep watching for our top 5 tips. Number 1, assess your goals. The first step you need to take when creating a career plan is to identify your goals. Understanding your ambitions and objectives will serve as a starting point as you begin to build your plan. This will help you pinpoint what actions you need to take to achieve those goals. For example, if one of your goals is to launch your own startup, a good way to get there is to gain some relevant experience by working at other startups, as well as obtaining a business management certification. Number 2, consider your strengths and weaknesses. The next thing you need to do is assess your strengths and weaknesses. Look back at your goals. What skills and knowledge are needed to achieve them? Which areas from your current skill set need improvement? This will help you set more realistic goals and better inform your overall career path. If you're not sure what your personal strengths and weaknesses are, ask your colleagues, managers, or teachers for their input. Performance appraisals, meanwhile, can also be a great way to identify weaknesses. By addressing these weaknesses, whether it's presentation or management skills, you could open up opportunities for career development. Number 3, identify your career options. Beyond your professional aspirations and skills, you should also think about what opportunities are available to you. You may want to become a freelance business consultant, for example, but local demand might be low, or you might need to obtain specific qualifications. It might also be the case that the job requirements or salary isn't compatible with your lifestyle. If the sound of weekend work or business travel, for example, doesn't appeal to you, then a typical 9-to-5 job may be a more suitable option. Need help mapping out your career journey? Try TalentDev, a unique career management platform dedicated to helping you assess your career fitness and understand your true potential. Combining extensive industry expertise and proprietary algorithms,
We won't spend any of our time learning a little bit more about their product. It is an example, though, of a resource that you can use when you're creating a development plan. And I do think it's important, like we can get really basic with it, but there are also some fantastic resources out there. For example, this one, there's some great templates out there that you can use, so you don't have to start from scratch. So that's just something to bear in mind when you are creating a development plan. The last one there was monitor your progress, which is also really important when we're considering our goals and when we're working through them. You've really got to reflect on where you've been, where you're getting to, how you think you're going with that goal, if you think it's still achievable, what your life circumstances are. So that is a really important part, but we're not going to go into detail on that today, because really what we're looking for is that start piece of developing the plan, and the monitoring the progress kind of comes afterwards. What did you think of that video? Do you feel like that sort of clarified anything for you? Did it make anything more confusing? Was it?
It seemed very similar to SMART goals.
Yeah.
In regards.
Yeah.
Just different wording.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying when we talk about the SMART goal method. It's such a common method, and it can be applied in so many different ways. And we can use definitions of the word, but really what we're saying is clarify the goal. Be really specific about what it is that you're trying to achieve. Break it down so it's really clear to anybody else coming in, not just you. Especially because often when we're looking to achieve these goals, it's not always about what you as an individual can do. Sometimes you need support from elsewhere. So they need to be able to understand what it is that you're trying to achieve. Definitely. Alrighty, we're going to jump into another task. We've got a little bit more time here. So that means we might be able to flesh out that skill inventory a little bit as well. So we've already completed a skill inventory. We're going to have a look at the job description that you've got as well. And we're going to consider the following questions for it doesn't have to be each of the requirements, because there's probably a lengthy list of requirements on the position description, there always is. So the two main things that we're going to be considering is, how confident am I that my existing skills meet those requirements? And we're just going to do from 1 to 5, just keep it simple. And how important is that skill in relation to other skills? So that's starting to think about the prioritization piece, You could do the A, B, C, D, E, but I think we'll just keep it important, less important, very important. So, you know, we've got 8 minutes to work through this, maybe a little bit more or less, depending on how much time you feel you need. So I'd probably say, bearing in mind the skill inventory that you've done with your existing, because that's just really to remind you of what you've already got there for you.
Yep.
Have a look through the position description. We can work through this together. I mean, I can read them out and I can ask you, or if you prefer, you can just write them down. It just depends on your personal working style.
Yeah.
But we've got around 8 minutes to kind of consider all of this self-assessment. So which way do you want to do it? Would you like for me to kind of read through it and we can have a conversation about each, or do you feel like you work
Let's
better?
do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you mind passing me your? Great. Okay, so the first one here, 1 to 2 years of experience in a marketing, design, or e-commerce role. So we didn't write that down in the skill inventory, but that's the experience piece.
Yeah.
So in terms of how confident you feel that you are in meeting those requirements, I'm assuming based on what you've told me, you'd be junky. You need more work because you need the experience, right?
Yeah.
How important is that skill in relation to others? That one I feel like can be a little bit subjective. You might have, you know, incredible experience elsewhere that really lends itself to the role. Maybe not specifically in marketing, design, or e-commerce, but they might look at, you know, your interview. They might look at your soft skills and go, actually, you might not have 1 or 2 years of experience, but I actually just think he'd be a fantastic fit.
Yeah.
And he can learn all the other stuff. He can learn the experience. So, I mean, you never really know, but I think when they put something like that there, for me, it's subjective and can be based on the person. So that's just something to bear in mind. But if you would sort of see that, would you say that that is really important, or?
I mean, I would say it's important, not very important, it's in the middle.
Yeah, great. Strong offline marketing performance records from traffic growth to conversion enhancement. Do you know what that means?
I know exactly what that means.
Whereabouts do you reckon you'll be sitting?
It'd be about a 3, purely because I haven't had time, because I'm at uni. But I've learned all about it and done it all. I just don't have the actual records of it.
Yeah, okay. So you understand the concept.
Yeah.
You'd probably meet the minimum requirements of that in that you could do it, but you would need time.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So how important do you think that skill would be in relation to others?
Probably important as well. More, very important than important.
Yeah.
Considering it's probably one of the more main positions of the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to make sure I'm writing some of these down so we can reference them. Great. General understanding of the concepts and tools of data-driven marketing.
5.
5?
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So if you were thinking about this in terms of the strengths and when you're writing your resume, you could absolutely pinpoint that as something as one of your hard skills that, and probably soft skills, it probably comes in together.
Yeah.
That you can really sell because that's one of your strengths. Fantastic. Would you say that that's sort of an important skill as well, in comparison to understanding the concepts of tools and data-driven marketing?
I believe it's important.
Yeah.
Important, very important, somewhere along the
Yeah,
lines.
fantastic. And that really what that does is your perception of that, it just shows you what you should be pushing when it comes to potential interview stage, writing your resume, what you're really selling yourself on.
Yeah.
So that's what we're essentially trying to figure out now. Those ones that are your strengths, what can you sell in your resume? What maybe needs more work in between now and when you might be developing a resume to apply for these jobs, so you can have more to say, this is what my strengths are, this is what I'm selling myself about. Proficient in Microsoft Office skills,
5.
5.
Yeah.
And I would imagine it's actually very important to be proficient in those skills.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Because, I mean, every
Business
business needs Microsoft Office skills these days. Yeah,
So
awesome.
that would be a soft skill.
It could be both,
Okay.
I would say, because technically speaking, you know how to use the computer software,
Yeah.
but you also might be fantastic at communication online because of Microsoft Office
Right.
and Teams.
Okay.
So I think it could be both.
Yeah.
I'd probably say that would be a tick box though, which means it could be more of a hard skill.
Okay.
Whereas with a soft skill, they probably ask you a little bit more about it, like tell me more about your communication style, rather than
Like
do you know how to use Microsoft Office skills?
Yeah.
You know. Demonstrated knowledge of digital channels, including online, social, and mobile platforms, with a focus on leveraging them for marketing purposes.
But 5.
5?
And that'd be very important considering the job description.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Strong written and verbal communication skills.
4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd say they're probably soft skills,
Yeah.
those ones, because they are, that you can apply them to any job, really. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. Bachelor's degree in marketing, business, or related field.
Well, it will be a 5 once I get my degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, very important considering that's you
Yeah.
need this to get this job.
Yep, for sure. I just want to make sure that I'm writing this down so we don't have to backtrack. Just the ones where we're thinking we might need a bit of, we're looking at this gap of
Yep.
identifying what we can do. Degree. Familiarity with e-commerce platforms, Shopify and WooCommerce.
About 3.
Yep.
And then I would say that's probably very important as well, considering that's one of their main channels.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like from this conversation you sound quite confident in your skills, which is fantastic. The majority of them have kind of sat, from here upwards, with only 1 or 2 sitting down here, which is really positive. Because when you're creating, it can be very overwhelming when you're thinking about creating a development plan and you've got 20 things that you need to work on, and that's often why people don't apply for jobs.
Yeah.
But if you look at it like this and you really just break it down and you're like, actually, I feel like I'm an average 4 for this. I feel really confident. I reckon the majority of these could be my strengths. Maybe some are a little bit lower than that, but if I can be up here for most things, it just sort of adds that confidence. And then you kind of, when you're writing your resume, you really, as I sort of mentioned before,
Focus on that.
yeah, exactly. I'll just quickly scan to make sure there isn't anything else that they've highlighted. No, those are those key things. Fantastic. Alrighty, we'll move on. Oh, yeah, perfect. So, researching growth opportunities. So the kind of key ones that we highlighted there as potentially needing more work was the 1 to 2 years of experience. We'll use that as an example for the sake of this session. Offline marketing records, that second point. I'm no expert, so I don't know exactly what that means, but you probably do know what that means. So that's probably something that you need a bit of time with or need some experience with. We need to bridge a gap there. The degree, that's a big one, but we've kind of already got something in place for that, which is fantastic. And then e-commerce. So understanding platforms a little bit better, maybe having a little bit more experience. So when we're thinking about needing to bridge these gaps, what are some things that you think you can do to get from not feeling so confident, at a 2 or a 3 to a 5?
So you got the 1 to 2 years in experience, and that 1 to 2 years would put you at a 5 for the other 3, because those other 3 are just basically, have you worked in the field and do you understand the field?
Okay.
So it's sort of, once you get your foot in the door for those 3, you can say you're proficient and you understand them. But it's very difficult to do, like e-commerce, like the Wix website, if you don't have a business or you're not running a business, because you're not going to just make a website because you can, and you have to pay for it all. And,
Yeah, but is there? So that's absolutely. You're making a really good point. That is, everything else can be so dependent on that. But are there things that you can do as an individual that will just edge you that one step closer, that means that they might not have to rely on 1 to 2 years experience?
Definitely just do like an internship, like a 6-month internship somewhere. Unpaid or paid or whatever. I think they would definitely take that into account. And even then, you would learn a lot more just to do with business in a whole. You could probably do some form of certification through some company, or even Google. Google does a lot of certifications.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I'm trying to get to.
So
I think sometimes we think we need to go really big and go, I need the experience, I need an internship. And look, a lot of the time you do. But I think something that's really promising when people are looking at resumes is that sense of you understanding what it is that you're going to need to be successful in this role and going out and doing it, even if you can't get that foot in the door. Because then when you're in that interview space or when they're looking at the resume, you stand out because you've actively gone and tried to fill the gap before having that experience. So as some examples for researching growth opportunities, you've got formal training courses, as we sort of mentioned, and that's more the certificate training where you actually get that certification. But you could do short courses, and you can write on your resumes that you've completed short courses in X, Y, and Z. E-commerce, you could have done a short course as to how to use Shopify.
Yep.
That in itself shows that you've gone, well, that's something I probably need to know beyond just my course. I haven't had the experience, but I've taken the initiative.
Yep.
Internships, as you've already sort of suggested. Books, podcasts, and subscriptions and conferences, they're less things that you can put on the resume, but they're things that when you start to talk to people, it shows confidence in your understanding and your knowledge of those gaps. Because having done them is fantastic, but are there ways that you can really deepen your understanding so they feel confident in that? Yes, you might have a little bit of a gap, but you know what it is you need to do. You really understand it beyond just, I did that in uni.
Yep.
So how can we get from A to B and just make that resume much sort of fuller and
Stronger.
basically, prepare you for jumping into the role. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and create a development plan with all of the things that we've just spoken about and that we've got in mind. So we're going to take one soft skill and one technical skill. We don't have to go down that path. We've kind of identified the 4 things, and you've identified that the soft skills you feel pretty confident with. So maybe what we'll try and do is have a look at some of these gaps that we need to fill.
Yep.
Research a growth or development opportunity for that skill. Identify an option, and then create a SMART goal for that skill or that gap, and its relevant development opportunity. So as an example, we already know that you need to get your degree.
Yep.
So we can say pretty confidently and cross that one off. Complete, what is it you're doing, a diploma or an undergraduate or? Undergraduate by?
2025.
Great.
Mid-year.
So is there any chance that it could go longer than that, or do you really not want it to? You kind of want to be done
If
by
I
then?
fail units, it will go longer than that.
Well, there you go. But that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
That's it's not an easy goal in the sense that you still have to achieve it.
Yeah.
But that's a really clear goal.
Yeah.
Finish, complete my undergraduate degree by 2025 by successfully, getting through all of the units.
Yeah.
Great. So that's an example. That one's an easy one. Let's have a think about one of the other ones, maybe this e-commerce. Remembering this sort of SMART goals. I was going to actually ask you what each of them meant, but I've just ruined that question for you. That's okay. We don't have that much time left anyway in this session, so we'll focus on this. So let's have a think about e-commerce as an example.
Yep.
So it was saying that they want you to have some experience and understanding of the e-commerce landscape, Shopify, that kind of stuff. Thinking about, if we go back, thinking about all these growth opportunities, what do we feel like could be something that will just strengthen us or start to bridge that gap for our understanding?
I would probably say short courses and maybe even podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely.
But primarily short courses.
Yeah. So let's spend a couple of minutes, if you want to jump on your phone, and just start researching some opportunities for development with Shopify, or any of these e-commerce short courses. finding a few different options there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I guess something to remember as well is when we think about some of these courses, we often go, oh, that's just more expense, that's more time. But sometimes we don't need to go and do the most expensive.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really just about showing the initiative to go and do the course. And there are heaps of free resources online.
So all the ones that I found here are free.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's fantastic. And that also removes a barrier.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time we're sitting there like, I've just paid for uni, that's so expensive. I really don't want to have to pay for this next thing. But if you can find some short course things, as I said, really it's about showing the initiative. But also, you doing that course probably moves you up at least a few points in terms of confidence for that particular hard skill, right? And that's fantastic. That ticks the boxes. If they ask you, you can say, well, I did it at uni, but I also did a course.
Yeah.
So what have you found?
So Shopify itself has a platform called Shopify Academy.
Yep.
Where they basically just break down different parts of their website and they go into depth on it.
Yeah, great.
There's a website called Udemy.
Yep.
I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yep.
And there's a bunch of different lectures on there. This one course is 5 lectures.
Yeah.
Takes, I think it's an hour and a half.
Okay. Yeah.
And it just gives you a little certification
Yeah.
at the end.
Yeah.
And then I just did a quick little Spotify thing for podcasts, and there's quite a few that just talk about online marketing more generally.
Yeah.
Over Shopify, like that.
Great. So let's use 2 of those options that you've got there to strengthen that. So you've got that podcast.
Yep.
What we're trying to do is we're thinking about SMART goals.
Yep.
So we're going to set a SMART goal for this skill that we need to develop. So specifically, what we're trying to do is, go from A to B, and I'm not going to answer this for you, so because it's important for you to figure this one yourself. But specifically, what are we doing? We're trying to get from A to B. Measurable. I mean, you could be talking about, I want to listen to 1 podcast a month, from now until whenever, just to keep that currency of knowledge going, because obviously the landscape constantly changes.
Yeah.
So that's something that I want to keep doing, and I want to do it for a month. I want to do it for a year, and that means I've listened to 12 different things, or I want to listen to this entire album from this particular person. So that could be something that's attainable once a month rather than once every day, because once every day is a lot.
Time,
Yeah, exactly. You don't have the time. It's relevant because all that's going to do is help, feel the confidence, and then timely. You've sort of said within the next year.
Yep.
So, keeping that in mind, I'll get you to write some SMART goals for maybe 2 separate things for these different development opportunities for the one skill, or you can combine them. I'm interested to see sort of what you come up with. Cool.
Yeah. So,
Fantastic. Do you want to talk me through them?
alright, so I've sort of linked the 2 courses like Shopify Academy and Udemy.
Yeah.
So I've got complete 3 different courses on Udemy within the next 6 months.
Yeah.
And use this knowledge to complete and pass the tests that are provided on Shopify Academy.
Yeah, great. Love that.
And then I've just got listened to 2 podcasts a month for the next 6 months as well.
Yeah.
That's just to accompany the.
Yeah. Fantastic. That's exactly what we're looking for. So it's really easy when we're looking at a position description like that to go, well, no, I've never done Shopify, and so they're just going to say no.
Yep.
But the whole point of this is to make you feel confident going into that role and go, well, actually, yeah, I can do this. I might not have the experience, but I've done all of this work myself to get me to where I need to be without that experience. But also to actually bridge the gap so you can do the job.
Yeah.
It's not just like the confidence convincing them, it's
Yeah.
actually being able to do it. Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
Great. So that's essentially it. I know, as you can probably tell, there's so much more really that you could unpack when you're talking about development plans.
Yeah.
And we could go through and create something really lengthy and really detailed for you. But hopefully that's given you a bit of a understanding of what you can do from here to support your growth. And I think just some sort of advice that I have from here as well is, even though you might not know exactly what industry you want to get into, as in terms of marketing, for marketing purposes, and you've still got a year and a bit left of your course, doesn't mean you can't start doing this.
Yeah.
Just because you might not be going for the exact roles that you're looking for as examples, doesn't mean you can't start fielding all of these position descriptions and getting an understanding of what people are looking for in entry-level roles to try and beat the curve.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to entry level, there'll be a lot of people who have graduated and are looking for the same role, so you probably want to stand out. So by screening all of this, and even just doing little things like this podcast,
Yeah.
so when you sit down for an interview, you can have a confident conversation about it, or
Yeah.
doing some of these Udemy or the Shopify Academy, that looks fantastic on a resume, and it might take you a little bit of extra time. Over the course of a year and a half, that's not outrageous.
Yeah.
If you make the time to do that. So if you were to add one extra level to that, it might say, you've said next 6 months, but you could even just say before the end of my course.
Yeah.
And have that ready for when I'm applying for jobs.
Yeah.
So then you have a bit of time to also develop any extra skills if, the expectation has changed since you've started this process, and that's also when that reflection piece comes in as well. As you keep going through, maybe in 6 months time you've completed this goal and you go, okay, I'm going to have a look at some more position descriptions. What else do they want from me? What can I do for the next 6 months to really develop and bridge those gaps?
Yeah.
So as a quick overview, as I mentioned before, or as obviously I mentioned before, we went through the full session on it. So session 1 was planning. So we identified, prioritize those work goals, figure out what your skills are, and then consider what your work progression opportunities are. And then from there, we're trying to figure out how we get there. So assess the current skills and the knowledge gaps, research ways to develop professionally, and then write your development plan using that SMART goal method. Use any goal method, to be honest, but SMART goal is pretty clear and understandable.
Yep.
Do you have any questions before we wrap up?
No. You nailed it on the head.
Yeah.
You've been providing clarity as you've been going
Yeah.
and linking back, so it's been very helpful.
Great. Do you feel like you're going to be able to, you can go away now?
It feels less daunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's good. And if that's all that you take out of it, in the sense that you actually at least have a clue as to what these next steps might be, then that's fantastic, So I'm glad to hear that. I'll have a feedback sheet that I'll just pass on to you to do once we sort of finish up before you head off. And then, obviously the communications can stay open. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those questions, or if you wanted some ideas as to how you can develop things as well. That's one of my strengths. So in terms of, researching and trying to find the best options. So definitely get in touch as well if you wanted any support there.
Will do. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.